This is not how I saw the season finale ending, but it definitely worked. What's up, YouTubers of the world? MegaGeekMixer here to give you guys my review on the final 3 episodes of Young Justice Outsiders. And yes, it was definitely not what I expected, but for what it is and what it's going for going into season 4, it works for me, and that's all that matters. But let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's start off with the first of the episodes, episode 24, where let me just say that Halo and Cyborg were the MVPs of this episode. They just pretty much killed it, taking down Granny Goodness and the orphanage. And that definitely leads into showing that these two are going to be secret weapons or secret weapons when it comes to Darkseid making his move on Earth. That's for sure. But what all went in this episode was in the fact that it all started off with Beast Boy on his mission during the time when the original Young Justice team, along with Brion, Terra, and Forager, were going off into the orphanage to find Violet. It was Beast Boy's Outsiders along with Cyborg who joined the ride, who revealed to us that he's finally embracing his powers and realizing who he needs to be. And that's part of the Outsiders, along with officially giving out his name, Cyborg, because he never went by the name Cyborg, he just went by Victor. But at the end of this episode, he finally embraced the fact that he is a superhero and he's going by the name Cyborg. But in any case, onto the mission, they thought that they might find Violet in a place where they thought Granny Goodness was at, and it turns out it was all a trap, and Beast Boy and his team were all put inside the X dimension. And Beast Boy, though, he got to have what he wanted after all this time. Finally, a one-on-one face-off against Gretchen Good, who pretty much, well, beat the crap out of Beast Boy, but Beast Boy still held his own, and it was an amazing fight. Even though he lost, he still would push on to not give up and try to get on Granny Goodness's bad side. And like I said, guys, while he did lose, he still had his MVP with him, that being Cyborg, who was able to go inside his mind and face Overlord the Machine from the inside, and that was able to help him free his friends from the X dimension, but also allow him to go into the orphanage to rescue not only Halo, but also the Justice League, and as well as finding out that through Overlord that we learned that Gretchen Good and Granny Goodness were one and the same. And after freeing Halo showed off her MVP in this episode by using not just one of her auras, but all of her auras, a rainbow aura. With it, she was able to use all her powers all at once, free the Justice League, and defeat Granny Goodness. And with that, along with the Justice League and Young Justice finally letting her know that it was Vandal Savage who sent them. More like sending a message off to Darkseid there. But we'll get into that here because that's saved for the end of episode 26. But that was pretty much what the first episode was. Halo and Cyborg saving the day, and Cyborg finally embracing his role as the superhero Cyborg, and he decides to become a member of the Outsiders. And speaking of the Outsiders, in this episode we found out that they have a competition in the form of the Infinity, I forget what their names are, but what they do is they work for Luthor and trying to outtrend the Outsiders, like a public team that's working for Luthor versus a public team working for the Justice League. And yeah, that's pretty much what that was there. And then moving on into the next episode. What we had in the next episode was really like a filler episode. Something that could have been resolved sometime earlier in the season, but they decided to save it for this, and they used this episode to pretty much give closure for Artemus. And that is in the fact that Artemus and Will were starting to feel like there's something going on between them, but of course, Artemis pulled back because she's still mourning over Wally and she still hasn't moved on. and basically what she needed was to finally be able to have closure and move on with her life. That's where she went into asking for Satara and McGann and Rocket for help. She felt that those three could be able to help her move on. Zatanna and McGann, you really combined their powers to let Artemis go inside her mind and talk with Wally, who looked like he came from the afterlife, just to be in her head, and where she would spend time with them. And she almost came close to wanting to stay in that dream because she was imagining all the things that she could have done with Wally if Wally hadn't died. Get married, have a kid, but as time went on and when the time was running out, Wally was able to help her realize that it's time to move on. And he wanted her to move on and find somebody, find love, and be able to have a happy life, which I would agree with. It was great that Wally was able to do that, able to make Artemis move on, and it looks like from the looks of things, they're not going to bring Wally back, and don't take this the wrong way, guys, but I think that's actually a good thing, because all the time when we actually think speedsters are dead, they're just trapped in the Speed Force, and they come back later on, and pretty much all other major comic book characters who died, like Damian, Superman, Batman, they were all supposedly dead, but they all found a way to come back. So if we can finally at least have something like that where they finally actually let a hero stay dead, I think it'll be great because it can move the story forward and develop other things into the storyline. But I still feel they'll still keep Wally around in some shape or form. Not to where he'll come back to life, but just where he'll be able to be a major influence on the others and helping them when they're in some sort of pickle or something. That's just a guess, though. But that also happened in this episode was Superboy introducing Fred Bug to what was called Geronium City, I believe. I hope I said that name right. I no doubt I butchered that name. I apologize. But what it is was Redbug was finally going to be able to finally go back home since his hive leader Mantis was working for the orphanage, and the orphanage's operation had been completely shut down, along with all the metahumans being rescued by the Justice League and being brought back to Earth. But Voyager was also getting to like Earth, and Superboy took him to a place called Geronium City, to where all the Genomorphs, who are Superman's brothers and project experiments of Cadmus, who thanks to the Justice League have been able to find a place where they could call their own home and live there. But unfortunately, since the real world of the human beings don't really know of who they really are, they can make out an illusion and make them look like they're just regular humans. And while they have found a life and been able to live it, they still feel somewhat isolated. This is where they talk with Superboy about how, like, he's not, while he's telling us all to get out in the world, Superboy isn't doing it himself, which could kind of contradict into how Superboy's been hard on everyone like McGann and Nightwing about saying stop lying and suck up on being who you are, when he really hasn't really been doing that himself. But that plays an even bigger key role at the end of the last episode. And that's where we'll go ahead and go right into it. First off, with Brion, as I said, he came a long way from what he was in season 1 and to how he became at the end of last episode. But it's at the end of this episode, the final episode of the season, where all that hard work, unfortunately, had gone to waste. See, their uncle, Baron Bedlam, in the final episode had finally escaped and was going to start a coup in his country. But luckily, the outsiders and the Young Justice team were showing up to stop him. However, this was where Deathstroke was going to make Tara finally betray the team and completed her mission. She was going to have Terra execute Beast Boy, but it turns out that man along with Artemis had known all along that Terra was working for Deathstroke, and they were trying to make her get persuaded away from following Deathstroke and make choices of her own, which they did. They succeeded in making Terra making the right choice and betrayed Deathstroke. Unfortunately, though, since they knew and they never told Brion and with all the other stuff that has been happening, he goes down a sad dark path. In other words, what we thought was going to happen was Tara being the traitor, and in the end it takes a twist around, and instead of Tara being the traitor, it's her brother Brion who ends up being the one to betray the team. How's that, you're wondering? Well, the first off, he executes his uncle, Baron Bedlam, and he does it in public, where in the end, by doing that, he betrayed his team, who was horrified that he crossed that line. But his citizens of Markovia started cheering for him, and it got to the point to where he finally where he betrayed the team and decided to become king of Markovia. But also in doing that, he betrayed not only his brother, but he betrayed Tara as well. And it turns out that while he did do all that, all of it was his doing, most of it was only half his doing. The other half belongs to the ambassador of Markovia, this I forget the guy's name, but he's the one who was responsible for having Brion's brother exile Brion at the beginning of this season. And it turns out this guy is part of the light. And not only that, it was because of him that Brion betrayed the team. Well, sort of betrayed the team, because he has psychic powers to where he can make people give in to their worst impulses. And the reason he did that is so that the light can have a country on their side as their puppets. So basically, going into season 4, Brion may be the king and stuff, but what he doesn't realize is he's working for the light. So this will definitely be something to be interesting to see when we get into season 4. But that wasn't all that happened in the last episode. It turns out that Black Lightning had finally come to terms and saying that while he still didn't like all the secrets and everything, he did care for the kids. And even though he was disappointed at the fact that Brion betrayed the team, with all the info that they got during that mission, Black Lightning was able to expose Luthor for all the crimes he had been committing behind the scenes while being the supposed Secretary General of the UN. And by doing that, it already had the public's already turning against Luthor, but it was the final straw that broke the camel's back when Superboy finally took a stand and revealed to the public who he was, his origin, and what Lex Luthor did. This, in doing so, made him get resigned from being Secretary General of the UN. And no doubt this also is going to knock out all that registration stuff he put on the Justice League. And make them be able to make sure all this metahuman trafficking stops. But in the end, it turns out that this wasn't a defeat for the light. This actually helps the light, because it turns out that while Darkseid and Vandal Savage admit they've had their problems, they were able to resolve them. But that still doesn't mean that they think they should keep an eye on Halo. And it's not just Halo they need to keep an eye on, Cyborg too. Because one thing I forgot to mention was that Metron paid a visit to Cyborg and Halo and told them that as his grandchildren and the progress they're making, he's thinking they will be major plot points going forward when Darkseid makes his move on Earth, if Darkseid doesn't kill him, as what he said. And that is definitely true, because no doubt next season, sometime around now, this season was all about Ready, the anti-life equation, thanks to the first letter of each word of each title of the episodes. That's what it said. So no doubt going into season 4 will not only Darkseid make his big move, but his move where it'll be something like the Darkseid War. That's what I'm believing it is. But while all that happened, we also got the fact that all the teams came together and revealed all their secrets and have decided to appoint Jefferson Pierce, aka Black Lightning, as the new leader of the Justice League. And that is all good, but I still will agree that you think you shouldn't keep secrets. Maybe you may think that, but sometimes you will have to keep secrets. And I'm sure Jefferson will learn that now, that as he becomes a member, the new leader of the Justice League, who makes the moves and everything. But here's where then it all ended when the superheroes were celebrating. One of them who one of the teasers we got that we might be getting coming in season 4 is the Legion of Heroes. That's right, guys. We got a teaser of the Legion of Heroes ring shown to us when she was pouring coffee down one of the customers' cups, and that was the ring. So the Legion of Superheroes, are we gonna have time travel involved in season 4? I don't know. All I just know is it's gonna be awesome. But definitely, guys, this was a pretty good season. Now, if I'm to rank it, unfortunately I'm just gonna have to put it as the last. No, not saying this was a bad season. Now, but if I'm to say which part I like more, I do like part 1 more than part 2 of this season. In part 2, it kind of lagged on a bit there, but in the end, it was still a great season, but it can't compare to seasons 1 and seasons 2. Seasons 1 and 2 were better to me. If I had to say what's my favorite season of Young Justice so far, I'm going to have to give it off to Season 2. Season 2 was the best to me. But either case, guys, it was great how things ended, and I'm glad we're getting to Season 4 along with the possibility of the Legion of Superheroes showing up. So definitely can't wait to see what we got going for us going forward. But until then, I hope you guys are enjoying my videos, and if you are, all you gotta do is click that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to be notified of when I make more videos, and until then, MegaGeekMixer signing out. Bye!